It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview the Nebraska Athletic Director for Assistant Fan Engagement, Katie Prchlik. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to work in college athletics?
Yeah, so originally growing up, I always pictured playing pro sports and playing in the WNBA. And then I suffered an injury at the end of middle school that kept me from playing sports competitively anymore. So I got to see the admin side of sports a lot earlier than most people do, with being a team manager for our high school women's basketball, JV, and varsity team, and then also coaching my sister's 3rd and 4th grade youth team. So when I went to Michigan, I got really involved with our student sections, and through that met people through the athletic department and realized a lot of the opportunities I had growing up as a fan were because of people working in marketing departments for those teams, and learning that that was a career and I could give back those experiences and opportunities to fans that I had growing up. I knew that's what I wanted to do career-wise. And I liked college athletics because I like that no 2 days are the same. You get to work a football game one day and then you're writing a script for a basketball game the next, and it's every day is different, which is what I liked about it.
What was your time like at Michigan Wolverines as the sports marketing intern?
Yeah, so I unfortunately missed the deadline because of just me having a miscommunication for my sophomore year. So I stayed really involved with our student section, and then interned with the athletic department my junior and senior year. My junior year, the program was just sign up for 5 or so events a month to work, and you might be doing field hockey one week and soccer the next week. But my senior year, they restructured the program so that we had a designated fall, winter, and spring sport. So I had field hockey, women's basketball, and softball. Actually, women's lacrosse softball was my junior. So that we worked almost every single game for those sports. We were on a rotating schedule with a team of 8 different people. So you weren't working every single game, but you worked most of it. And that was for you to get familiar and have ownership over a sport, but also so that fans would recognize you and be more comfortable approaching you for questions, or they knew who to look for if they wanted to be a contestant for something. So those were the 2 structures the years that I did the internship program there.
What was your time like working for McNesse State University as the marketing assistant?
Yeah, so at McNesse, I honestly had never really heard of them. I was really familiar with the bigger schools from everywhere I lived growing up. There was always a powerhouse team that was the closest team to where I lived. But McNesse was awesome because while my title was marketing assistant, my office was and desks were located in the ticket office. So I did ticketing on a daily basis. I was the only marketing/ticketing computer that had Photoshop and Adobe programs on it. So I was the one doing promotional graphics for any giveaways or promotions we were doing with Kids Club. And then we did a lot with community outreach with our Kids Club program, and we had a reading program. And then for football game days, I was actually running the production shed with queuing replays, doing music, all the production side of things. And then for basketball, I was the replay official. But then for our spring sports, I was the main person in the ticket booth selling tickets and monitoring the player pass list. So it allowed me to see a whole bunch of areas that I had no experience or familiarity with during my time at Michigan, because it was just a marketing internship at Michigan. And it allowed me to get a better understanding of athletic departments as a whole and how external departments run too.
What was it like getting your feet wet doing social media for them?
Yeah, Twitter and social media have grown so much since I started in this industry. When I was at Michigan, I interned for 2 different social media apps and platforms that were sports specific. That was kind of the conversation that sports Twitter has become now, but that wasn't really a thing when I was in school. So just seeing how drastically things have changed and how drastically graphics and the content going out on social media from team accounts, like I look back at some of the stuff I posted when I had no background in Photoshop to begin with. And then even through my 3.5 years at Utah State doing social media, it has changed so much. And things I put out at McNesse, I wouldn't even consider putting out now just based on the quality of the work. So
Speaking about, of course, Utah State, what was that time like?
yeah, so I started as a marketing assistant there for roughly a year, where the department as a whole had only had one full-time person before I got there. And when I got hired, we had another marketing person hired as well. So it went from a 1-person department to a 3-person department, which allowed us to give a lot more time and focus on some of our smaller sports that had coaches were running their social media accounts because we just didn't have the staff and the manpower to man those. But when we became a 3-person department, we got to help them and take that away, not away from them, but we got to relieve them of feeling like they were the main contributor to their social media accounts, and just growing. Our track and cross country program is continuously ranked in the top 25, usually at Utah State. And they didn't have a social media presence of a team that's normally ranked top 25, and having people compete at the NCAA finals for cross country and the NCAA championships and West and final championships for track and field, and just being able to grow that following and help create a consistent content schedule and calendar for them with birthday posts and meet day posts and upcoming events and personal records being broken and school records being broken was really good because they hadn't had that before. So they were very appreciative of it, but it also is just nice to be able to make that big of a difference with a program.
Of course, what was your time like transferring from Utah State to Nebraska now?
Yeah, so transferring and switching from a mid-major that was very successful in multiple sports to a Power 5 school in the Big Ten, I transitioned during crossover season, which makes things a little bit crazier. We were already 5 games into women's basketball when I got here. We had only one home football game left, so I only experienced one football game in non-COVID time so far. And it's just jumping straight in because your seasons are starting. Softball's right around the corner, which is one of my other sports, and really not looking to make changes at that time, but just make slight adjustments and buy into what's being done and see how you can adapt in the moment because the season's already started and in progress.
Of course, at Nebraska, what teams do you cover?
Yeah, so at Nebraska, my main sports right now are women's basketball, softball, and then typically I oversee interns with tennis, but with COVID, we didn't have interns this past year, so I had tennis again. And then last year I had bowling because we only have one home bowling event, but a coworker had a commitment outside of work. So I oversaw the bowling invitational. But then besides sports, I have anything that's student related. So student initiatives, student season tickets, student email communication. Our student intern program is under me. And then I also have our kids club program.
What are some of your roles and responsibility as the assistant athletic director and marketing?
Yeah, so as the assistant director for marketing, those 3 areas that I touched upon, I'll just go into a little bit more detail. So with kids club, I have relaunched and rebranded kids clubs at McNesse and Utah State. So when I came here, kids clubs are really something I'm passionate about and think is vitally important for fan bases. With fans and season ticket holders, donors getting older, you have to find those ways to engage kids and younger fans early on to start building that fan base and loyalty to the schools and programs. And kids club, while the welcome bags and stuff are really nice, and I'm not saying don't do those because that's part of it, it's really the thing that means the most to the kids are the experiences they get with NIL. We'll see how that kind of changes. Some of the opportunities with meet and greets and stuff that we're used to doing, but just having those moments and experiences that they can go back to and be like, I got to do this and I got to talk to so-and-so on the volleyball team or so-and-so on soccer, like gave me a mini autograph ball and stuff. Like those touch points are so huge. And like, that's what got me into sports with doing a basketball camp where somehow the person in our town had connections to the Seattle Storm and the Washington Huskies. So we had coaches and players as our instructors. And since I was the youngest person at the clinic, I got a lot of one-on-one instruction. And like, that's what stands out to me. Not, yes, I have shoes that like they all signed and everything, but like it's those interactions and like those fan moments that really create the fan.
Speaking about fan interaction and fan engagement, what kind of stuff does Nebraska do when it comes to fan engagement?
Yeah, so we are very fortunate that we have several teams that continuously are sold out attendance wise. So our focus really gets to be more on that in-venue experience and atmosphere. Well, we need to sell tickets too for the smaller sports. Like we have that huge core fan base already there. So we get to spend more of our time focusing on having those interactive contests and having a live MC and DJ at our events to create that balance between the band and like pump up music to get like when a huge shot is hit and stuff. So with our kids club, that's our main like youth approach to fan experience, but then just having those in-game elements and stuff and making it interactive contests instead of just PA reads.
Of course, what is the process like of marketing a college team?
Yeah, so you're marketing the school as a whole, so Nebraska, but then there's all the subgroups within it. So you have football that has its own personality, and you have basketball that has its own personality, and then volleyball and softball and everyone else. That each team is a personality within the brand. So that's why you have, and this could all change with NIL, which will be really interesting to see, but you have like team mottos for the year and stuff that like tie into the overall Nebraska branding, but it's how you market to those fan bases. Like You Betcha is a really big thing with the women's fan base for basketball because our commentator does that when we have a huge play. So like roller banners are really big with a few of our sports and kind of stuff. So like knowing that our fan base as a whole needs to be marketed to, but then also marketing to the people who go to volleyball but might not go to softball, and like marketing to those team fan bases within the overall fan base too.
Of course, what are some challenges when it comes to the teams that don't get enough love, but some teams do get enough love when it comes to marketing?
I think we do a really good job about spreading it out. If you have home events, the only sport that we have that doesn't have seating for fans to actually like attend in person is beach volleyball. So all of our other sports have someone, full-time staff and or interns that are assigned to it. We had tennis Big Ten championships in Nebraska this past spring, and we market that just like we would how we marketed the Big Ten men's gymnastics championships that we hosted roughly a month before that and stuff. So while they're not as big as like a football or volleyball or men's basketball that's been sold out type of thing, we just market it differently. we do like, I know of places that like their smaller sports, if it's not ticketed and stuff, like they don't have a budget for those sports, but all of our sports have a budget. They're just proportional to the fans they're bringing in.
What is something that you learn now that you didn't know before working in college athletics?
I think the biggest one would just be, before my injury, I didn't realize this was a full career path in industry that someone could pursue. But I think once getting into the industry, something I know now that I didn't know at the beginning was how important networking was, which a lot of people don't believe me because of the Twitter chat I've started and everything. But like for McNesse, I definitely, like when I was applying after, like right before graduating from Michigan, I did not utilize my bosses at Michigan. Like I didn't reach, like, yes, they were my references, but I didn't ask them like, hey, I'm applying to such and such place. Like, do you know anyone? And I didn't know of the professional organizations that existed within college athletics to help with networking, like NACMA. And I didn't know if Twitter chats existed until a few months into my job at McNesse. So I think the biggest thing is just the networking side of the industry.
What advice would you have somebody looking to work in college athletics?
Yeah, I think the biggest one is that it's not just networking or experience. You have to do and have both. But with the networking, especially now with COVID and Zoom being so much more popular than it was, is just setting up those informational interviews. Like, you don't have to, like, you might know you want to go into sports, but like, what's the difference? Like, marketing and fan experience isn't the same even between schools in the Big Ten. Like some of the schools work with social media on a daily basis. We have our own social media department, so we don't really do much with digital. So it's just doing those informational interviews to get the research and like figure out where and what levels make the most sense for you, but then also using those to start building your network and networking.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media, along with, of course, the Nebraska Athletics app?
Yeah, so at Katie Prchlik for Twitter and TikTok, and then at K Prchlik for Instagram. I keep meaning to change that so that it's all consistent, but I have not done that yet. And then the Twitter chat is at YP Sports Chat. And then Nebraska main athletics accounts are all at Huskers across the different platforms.
Thank you again, Katie Prchlik, for your interview, and best of luck in your future with Nebraska and fan engagement and marketing.
Thank you.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports Talk, Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Katie, for your interview, and best of luck.
Thanks, Brandon.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.